Lovely. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us today. So we are going to do a little introduction on tree keepers and tiny forests today. So thank you so much for joining us here and giving up on your time in the sun. But hopefully we will try to wrap it up as quickly as we can, whilst giving as much information as we can, so that you can have a little bit more sun time later today. So just a quick introduction of who we are. Hello, my name is Divya. Most of you might have, I know some of you have already met me in person, but the others might have seen me as the person replying to all your emails on the Tiny Forest inbox. So I'm the community engagement coordinator for Earthwatch Tiny Forest project, so which means I take care of volunteers, lovely volunteers like yourself, and also take care of the outreach for all our Tiny Forest events, and then run webinars and all the other stuff in between. And today we have our amazing Sophie. Do you want to give a quick introduction?
Yes, yeah. And also you didn't give yourself enough credit. We have the amazing Divya. I'm Sophie. I am within the Tiny Forest as a project, we have various different teams. So I'm in the science team. I'm the assistant science research manager. So I have a PhD and scientific expertise in plants, essentially, and how plants pull down carbon and use that. So I specifically work within Tiny Forest of keeping an eye on our sort of citizen science data monitoring practices, making sure they're fit for purpose, trying to kind of make that more usable by the public. And then on the downstream side of things, when you're all done collecting this fantastic data for us, I then analyze it and help use that data to support publications and also other academic collaborations that we have, and also writing of grants to get more money to support the Tiny Forest work. So I've only been here for about 6 months, but loving it, and loving the team, and Divya has been fantastic to work with.
Oh, thank you. That's a lovely introduction. Nice summary of all the things that you do. So guys, you are all going to be a part of this bigger mission, and that's something that we will be touching upon later in the presentation. So today we will do a little intro about Earthwatch, Tiny Forest, that we'll go through the tree keeper role, what to do and when in your Tiny Forest, and also a little bit about the Tiny Forest portal. It's basically the website where you will be putting all the amazing data that you will be collecting. So let's get started. So about Earthwatch, we are an environmental charity with science at its heart. So as you could probably make out from what Sophie said, so science and research is at the heart of everything that we do. So, and one of our main mission is to connect people with the natural world while monitoring the health of our natural resources, and also help people take action towards the environment, and also climate positive, nature positive action. And another very important role that we do is trying to get a lot of different stakeholders together. So we try to bring together governments, policymakers, businesses, like we have Ricket joining us today, and civil society organizations, scientists. So we're trying to get everyone together, and not just talking and starting the dialogues, but also taking action. And the way and another area of expertise for us is that we advance, we are experts in citizen science. So we have been doing it for a very long time, and we absolutely love doing that, because it kind of, breaks these barriers around, access to nature, access to science. So, getting people involved in science and research, and making it as accessible as possible to people from all walks of life. So that's another thing. And we also enable science-based action, and that is via citizen science. And we also work very closely with teachers and educators. So we have an amazing education team that I'll be talking a little bit about later. So we have really good resources. For teachers and educators to take advantage of, about engaging children and young people in outdoor learning, and also, getting all these practical skills of collecting data, and, sharpening their skill sets in outdoor learning and as well. And we have another team, which is the corporate learning team that works with corporates, to help them transform their businesses, making it more sustainable and having a better understanding of, what's happening out there and how they can make it better through their business practices as well. So that's a little bit about Earthwatch. Now I'll hand over to Sophie for, why tiny forest and all about tiny forest.
Yeah, thanks, Divya. So, I mean, aside from the fact that obviously tiny forests look fantastic and it's lovely putting sort of more greenery within our cities, there are also some very real reasons why we are putting tiny forests within urban areas as essentially environmental interventions. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but obviously we're currently facing some really big problems in terms of climate change and biodiversity loss. So, for example, we're currently particularly at risk from natural disasters, global diseases, loss of economy due to climate change. So far, there's been a 1.1 degree increase from sort of pre-industrial centigrade from pre-industrial levels, and we're projected to actually hit 2.7 at the moment by the end of the century, which is really massive. Lots of obviously side effects in relation to that in terms of desertification, food resources, but unfortunately all these things, flooding, all these things have felt more acutely in cities. So that is one aspect of why tiny forests are really important in terms of their role as a nature-based solution to climate change, i.e. drawing down carbon. In terms of urbanisation, the global population is burgeoning, which again places an increased demand on resources and space, and most of those people in the globe live within cities. So by 2050, we're estimated that the 68% of the global population will be living in cities, but in the UK, for example, only 5% of cities is covered by green spaces. That isn't including gardens. So that is felt more acutely in terms of that access to green space and exposure to it in ethnic and socially deprived areas, which is where really we need it, because there is this problem in globally, but also particularly for those living in cities, that people are increasingly getting disconnected from nature. So they're not realizing the importance of the biodiversity crisis, for example, on actually the global economy, political stability, and just their own personal welfare. So there's this new term called the nature deficit disorder, and it actually causes a diminishing of the senses because we're not present in nature, we're not listening, smelling, using our natural state to be within the world. It causes attention difficulties, high rates of physical, emotional illness. And having green spaces within our city not only provides environmental benefits from biodiversity and climate change perspective, but it also increases social welfare. So this is why we then are having the tiny forest intervention within cities. So cities don't have very much space. It's not like we can go and whack in sort of half of the highlands within a city and give you wonderful spaces to hike. So we need to be very clever about what interventions we're putting there and use these pockets of land. So tiny forests are quite unique compared to most planting efforts. Most planting efforts will plant trees quite sparsely, and actually this isn't a particularly accurate representation of actually how natural forests look. So natural forests, if you went into one, we don't have many in the UK, but they're actually very dense. You can almost can't walk through them, and both the ground and also the vertical space is generally full of plants. So this method was developed by a Japanese scientist called Akira Miyawaki in the 1970s, and he looked at these what are called climax forests and saw how dense they were and that they have all these multiple vertical layers, for example, shrub, subcanopy, canopy, and was like, takes a long time to get these forests to maturity, hundreds of years. Is there a way we can hack this to create a climax forest in a shorter period of time? So he developed this method called the Miyawaki method, now known to generate a dense, fast-growing miniature woodland in a short space of time. So a tiny forest plants 600 trees of differing sort of forest strata in terms of where it sits within that vertical space. And it's only the size of a tennis court, but it works. It grows very fast, they grow healthily, And hopefully we're going to hope that it creates an urban nature-based solution for environmental crisis, but also provide social benefits to people. So there are lots of benefits, as I've mentioned, but these are kind of the 4 key ones that, as you know, because there's so much we could focus on as an NGO. It's like, where do we put our effort? So we're really interested in, as a citizen science and a science-driven organisation, we are interested in the science, but we're already interested in the social value. And one thing that is a real problem is this disconnection with nature. So we want to use tiny forests to engage local community and reconnect people to nature, to make it accessible, to make it inspiring, to make people understand how nature works. And I've seen this firsthand on some of the planting events, and it's really beautiful seeing people's transformation with understanding this. Alongside that, we obviously want to raise the environment. A lot of people don't realise the extent of the problem that we're in terms of the climate, but also the biodiversity crisis and how they're linked. And we want to use that as a starting point for education and encouraging people to take action, because most people feel very powerless and don't know where or what they can do. As I've mentioned, we would like to use these tiny forests as, well, they are what we call a nature-based solution, so a way to pull down carbon into the trees. There's a lot of claims around the Miyawaki method that it pulls down more carbon, but we don't know how much. So we want to use the tiny forest as being part of the solution to the climate problem, but we also want to understand how and how it does that and to what extent. And as this biodiversity crisis I've been mentioning, these are fantastic refuges within a sort of very hostile environment with cities. And again, that's another way to feed back into this feedback loop of reconnecting people with nature and raising awareness.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll just touch a little bit about how the process works. I think most of you would have already kind of seen one part of it, because you might have planted your tiny forest. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So first of all, scouting for the tiny forest to get the right land. So as Sophie mentioned, we definitely we have a few priority areas, like areas that have higher deprivation and do not have access to good quality natural spaces. So we want to look for such areas that need a tiny forest and make sure we have them in those places. There's a lot of, once that is done, we do a lot of soil testing to figure out, what kind of trees actually grow well in that soil. And also there's a lot of work done by Sophie's team where they figure out, what different species have to go in there, try to look at the closest semi-native woodland and try to reflect, the species that grow there in your tiny forest as well. And also it decides on what kind of additives go into your tiny forest. So part of the Miyawaki method is, the land preparation. So in addition to the very close planting, we do a lot of land preparation. So you might have seen in your tiny forest site that there might have been diggers that kind of dig up up to 1 meter and then kind of mix it with additives, organic additives like manure, compost, a little bit of straw and stuff. So basically to decompact the soil and then mix it up with these really good nutrients that give.
Can I step in there for a second, Divya, as well? Is that okay? Yeah, because a lot of people get very upset when they see these soil interventions because it looks very invasive. Yeah, a lot. But when you explain to people, actually, when I was talking about this traditional planting method that's quite sparse, you get a lot of mortality and failure of the planting. So the trees will often die. And this is because it's a waste of money and a waste of effort. And it's because the soil underneath is very compacted and the roots can't grow. So while our soil preparation methods look quite invasive, it means that the forests often flourish incredibly well. The trees don't outcompete each other. And yeah, and you just have the best chance of making a tiny forest unless trees die. So just FYI.
Yeah, true. I mean, we do have to kind of keep reassuring a lot of our local communities who live with saying, "Oh my God, what's happening? It's going to be fine."
And we do our best to so we do a lot of, we have some sites where we have 2 tiny forests and we'll trial different methods. So we try and minimize the amount of interventions we put into the soil. And that's something we're aware of.
So once all of that is done, we also try to have these, the designing phase where we figure out, what kind of shape, because most of our tiny forests are not your typical squares or rectangles. So, we have like weird shapes like a Pac-Man, and I think Ricketts site was like somehow on the slope. So it was like windy and bendy. And so yeah, we have tiny forests in all shapes and sizes coming in. But yeah, roughly the area is around 200 square meters. And then the amazing planting day that you guys have all been a part of. So that's again an amazing time to get all the wider community involved and, planting. So that kind of gives a little bit of, that sense of stewardship, because yeah, I planted this tree, and then, having that sense of, oh my God, I'm going to see how it grows. And these guys do grow very quickly. So, so that's an amazing part. And then now that you guys have planted your tiny forest, comes the next important part, which is the data collection. So yeah, that's one thing. So, unlike the traditional planting, we just don't leave our tiny forest. So we kind of keep going back to it year after year. And we also need support from amazing tree keepers like yourself, to keep an eye on the forest, and also to collect all these vital information. So all the claims of benefits that we have been doing, we want to make sure that that is what is happening. And how do you do that? By collecting data from your tiny forest and proving that that is actually what is happening on ground. So yeah, that's how the process flow is usually. And yeah, we have crossed the 200 marks, which is just amazing. So we have 208 tiny forests all over the UK, mainly in the UK, but then you can see that we're kind of creeping into the EU as well. And obviously we can't do this alone. So we have amazing funding partners and a lot of collaborations that go on. So, up north, we have collaborations with, with Nature's God, Green Action Trust, and we have another new partnership coming up with the Welsh government. We have amazing partners like Seven Trent and Ricketts who have joined us. So it's an effort from a lot of people coming together and making this happen. So we can't ever do this alone. And yeah, the community and our partners play an extremely important role in making this happen. And now coming to the important part, so our amazing tree keepers. So yeah, we call them the guardians of the tiny forest, because there are 200, but we are like a very small team, and there's absolutely no way that we can keep an eye on our tiny forest on our own. So we definitely rely on you to be our eyes and ears on ground, and to help us support with nurturing the tiny forest. So yeah, tree keepers are a core group of volunteers, and we will be there to support you all through the way in any kind of support that you need. So training is one of them, so like the one that we're having today. And we also have a lot of other resources that you can tap into as tree keepers and take advantage of it. So when it comes to the tree keeper role, we mainly put it into three broad buckets. So the first one is maintenance, the second one is citizen science, and the third one is community engagement. And I've put these reversible arrows because they kind of are interconnected. So if you are really interested in community engagement, then you can have a tiny forest care day or something like that, where you can combine a little bit of maintenance and a bit of citizen science, and make a day out of it, or have a pollinator picnic in your tiny forest and do some pollinator surveys and have a picnic. We have lovely weather coming up, so there are a lot of different things that you can do, and that's the thing that we want. So we're keeping it very flexible, and also based on your area of interest, you can do more of some or less of the other. Like, we have amazing bunch of microbiologists here who are interested in the citizen science aspect. So yeah, you can obviously take and run with it. So yeah, wherever your interests lie, you can do more of that. And then this is one of the frequent questions that I ask. So with whether you have to take any permission. No, I mean, most of our tiny forests are in publicly accessible spaces, except for today's example. I guess one of them is in a school. So in which case the access is definitely there's no public access, but then the children have access to these tiny forests, and maybe you can have like a parents get together in the tiny forest, or invite the parents to take care of the tiny forest with the children after school. So you can do a lot of events in the forest if you want to involve the wider community and invite them as well. So, and then these are independent activities, so you don't have to inform us or take our permission for any of these. So, if you have a little bit of time, you want to grab lunch out in the open or something, just stop by your tiny forest, grab a lunch, and then do a survey or a bit of weeding whenever you're free. So you can do it as much as you want or as little as you want.
Oh, I'm struggling to hear you, Divya. I don't know if anybody else is getting that.
Is it better now?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So I just probably have to move a little closer. So yeah, it's a very flexible role. Make it your own, and happy to help you through the process. So just going into a little bit more detail of each of these roles. So what do you mean by maintenance? So just regularly visiting your tiny forest, just go see how it's doing. If it looks extra pretty, take some pictures. We're always happy to see pictures of our tiny forest to see how they're going. So we also have a tree keeper Facebook group, so you can join that. You can post pictures over there. Our other tree keepers are also doing that, so you can see what they have been up to. And if you have some interesting wildlife sightings, do let us know. With some of our older forests, we have got like newts and toads and frogs. So, definitely a lot to look forward to in your tiny forest. So keep an eye out. In case of extreme weather, we definitely need your help, especially with the summer coming in. If there are like long spells of sun, then we might need your help to just monitor heat stress in the saplings. I mean, especially with quite young tiny forests which are just establishing, we definitely need your help. So we do a lot of things in the tiny forest, like for example mulching that helps retain moisture. And the tiny forests are also designed to be self-sufficient, but sometimes if it gets like too extreme, for example last season we did have like prolonged periods of drought and heat waves. So then in some of the forests where we did notice heat stress, we did get in a bit of watering for the tiny forest. So this we do it usually through with the help of the local council. So if you can let us know, just keep an eye on heat stress signs in your tiny forest, like yellowing of or browning and crisping of the leaves and stuff.
Yeah, very droopy.
Yeah. So in that case, just let us know and we'll try to see how we can arrange for some watering of the forest. And also if there are any antisocial behavior that you want to report, this is usually for our tiny forests which are in like public spaces, then you can let us know and we can collectively come up with a solution of how to deal with it. But the main thing in the maintenance part would be weeding of your tiny forest. So especially for the first 2 or 3 years, when the saplings are quite young, we want to give them the best chance of survival. So which means, all the other plants that are growing around your trees, quite close to it, they would be competing with them for the nutrients. So we might want to just remove them just to give our saplings a little head start. So we have a separate weeding guide. So we have an entire webinar that we did on what to weed and what not to. So you can check our YouTube playlist for that. And we also have a weeding cheat sheet. So I'll tell you where to find that. So that will give you a bit of guidance on what to weed and what not to. So another thing that was highlighted by our science team was a bit of re-tagging. So you might have noticed during the planting that some of our trees are tagged. So these are our experimental trees. So 100 of them are tagged. And while tagging, one of the issues is that the tags might become a little too tight. So if you're just, moving around in your tiny forest, just keep an eye out. If they're a little too tight, just loosen them up and then, maybe tie it up on another branch or a side branch or something with quite a bit of room for the branch to grow. And in case there's any bit of repair that you could help us with, that would be great. If you have the capacity and time for it, we can always reimburse you for some of these costs. And also litter picking, because litter is bad for the environment, it's bad for wildlife. So when you're there, if you see something, just pick it up. So yeah, that's the maintenance aspect of it. Sophie, do you want to talk a little bit about the citizen science, just the force survey in a little bit, like a nutshell?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so along with obviously the other benefits that or the other things that you can do as a tree keeper around tiny forest, because from my point of view, of course, my priority is the science and learning more about these places and sort of what they can do, because I'm a massive geek. There are obviously these other lovely things around the maintenance and just the welfare side of things. But from my perspective, once a tiny forest has been planted, we then try and encourage tree keepers and other members of the public to collect data on how the tiny forest is growing and those main areas that support those objectives around monitoring how a tiny forest contributes towards environmental change. That we're looking at is also the biodiversity levels within the tiny forests. Are they increasing? That's what we'd expect. How much carbon is the tiny forest storing? We do this through measuring above ground plants. We are doing some side projects in soil. And then we also measure flood management. That's how quickly water infiltrates into the soil inside compared to outside a tiny forest, because the roots should break up the soil and improve the ability to put water into the ground faster during flood events. And then finally, as cities are warming through global warming, trees can help cool that very substantially, by up to 10 degrees. So we're measuring what's called thermal comfort. So how tiny forests help to cool the environment, both really through weather stations, but also how you perceive that to feel.
Yeah. So just to give you guys a little idea of what these surveys look like. So they're actually very simple surveys and they're actually really fun to do. So just a little shout out for our teachers, so Sarita and gang. So just, like children especially enjoy some of our biodiversity surveys. So under our biodiversity, we have like 4 different surveys. And in your tiny forest, you might have noticed these tiles, like the concrete tiles, the biodiversity tiles, as we call it. So this is where you kind of lift it up and look for all these creepy crawlies underneath, and the kids just go nuts. And yeah, some adults like me as well who just love trying to find what's under these tiles every time I go. It's almost like a treasure hunt. So, these are really good opportunities to engage children and young people in the forest as well. So good way to kind of see, how you can connect your curriculum based to some of these experiments. So for example, in biodiversity, you can, if you're learning about habitats and different species, you're learning about, local wildlife, you can kind of integrate that into that, and you can kind of, have that lesson in your tiny forest while you're doing some of these biodiversity surveys. Or during carbon capture, you kind of are measuring the trees, so you can kind of talk about the different units of measurement, you can talk about height, diameter, and different things. And also just generally, like, using your tiny forest as a space. So maybe if you have, like, if you're an English teacher and you want them to write an essay about nature or trees, just get them into the tiny forest. Or, for the Ricket gang here, so, if you're having like a team meeting or something and you have a lovely weather like today, then why not have your meeting outdoors in your tiny forest? It's a nice way to kind of get the team out, get a little bit of leg shaking, and then if you're more interested, you can do some of these surveys as well. So it's a good space to just kind of use and enjoy. So we have separate trainings for each of these citizen science surveys. I'll show you where to find them, and we also have all the protocols ready. So they're very simple and they can be used by children and adults of all ages. So you just have to have a quick read and then and we also have previous recordings where our science team kind of goes in depth into why we are doing this, how we are doing it, what kind of data comes out of it, and how we use it. So we have both variants around, so based on how much time and how much you want to get involved in all of these. And also we are now preparing our citizen science kits. So almost all our tiny forests are going to get at least one citizen science kit that you kind of can share and start doing these surveys. So right now we have like close to 100 kits getting ready in our office. So we're trying to get all the equipments in place, and we're putting it together. So we'll soon be sending it out to you guys. So you can start doing these surveys on your own. And we have all the protocols and there. But there are a few surveys that you can do without equipment. So for example, for biodiversity, you just need your phone and a stopwatch. Or if you don't want the children to be running around with a phone or a tablet, we also have like field sheets that you can kind of print out, and you can write it down and enter it later. Carbon storage, it just needs a tape measure and a ruler. So if you have that around, so you can also start doing carbon survey. But for flood management and thermal comfort, you need a few more equipment that you would be getting in your default kits. So, and yeah, another shout out. So the sun is out, so all your bugs and butterflies are out there. So please do take some time. Our biodiversity surveys are like they take anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. So, and they're actually really mindful moments to spend in your tiny forest. So, I mean, this is something that I usually observe. So, we usually don't purposefully look at the wildlife around us, but biodiversity survey is a way where you kind of are forced to sit down and look for bugs and critters, and that kind of is a very nice way of connecting with nature. So do try that out. We just finished our biodiversity week recently, and but then all spring and summer is a good time for pollinator survey. And so we would just, any data is good data, so keep that. And yeah, you want to go. Okay. And we have last part engagement. So if you want to engage community in the tiny forest, a lot of opportunities. So just engage with people for well-being. You can have a community care day in your tiny forest, get everyone together. So just using the new resource that you have in place. This is a bit of a snapshot of what your other tree keepers have been doing in the UK. So there are a few of them who have been talking about their tiny forest in like show and tell events, their local sustainability events. A lot of reading going on at the moment because yeah, spring and yeah, you are able to please keep an eye on that, and fewer of them you can kind of easily get them off. And then we have a bunch of good gymmers over here.
I don't know if anybody else is having problems, but occasionally, Divya, you're completely cutting out.
Okay, so let me just plug in.
Because I can see you're okay, but just that, yeah, just sound wise, occasionally it's dropping in and out.
Yeah, I think there was also an ice cream truck parked just outside with the music. So yeah. Okay, sorry guys.
Oh, good. I was wondering whether it was me as well, because I've got new broadband. So no, I think it's unfortunately, Divya, it's your end.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Thanks for the shout.
Okay, we have slides, so you can interpret.
So yeah, lots of things that your fellow tree keepers are up to. So yeah, we just get started. And a little shout out to our education team. So please do have a look at our education website, that is edu.earthwatch.org.uk. So we have a lot of really good resources available for our educators. And even in the portal, I'll show you where to find them. So they're basically curriculum-based learning for Key Stage 1, 2, and 3. And right now they're also preparing for Key Stage 4. We also have a lot of our protocols for prepared specifically for children and young people with specific learning difficulties. So we have a whole lot of resources available. So please do take advantage of these. And the outdoor learning resources are also useful for the adults as well. So in case you want to have like a team building exercise, it's always nice to kind of you could modify it a little bit for your own team. So maybe like make a wildlife mandala out of fallen leaves and twigs and things like that. So yeah, a lot of resources. So please to have a look. Then we have the Tiny Forest calendar. So this kind of gives you an idea of what to do and when in your tiny forest. So when is a good time to do it. So even though all our surveys can be done all through the year, but there are certain milestones that we would like to hit along the way, where we would like to get good quality data from all the tiny forest in the network. So for example, we just had the biodiversity week in May. Then we have the carbon week coming up in September. So And also we have highlighted the different training webinars that are in place. So all these are not compulsory, but of course, these are upskilling webinars that we have put in place. So please do take advantage of them. They're all there on Eventbrite. So the same thing, same platform through which you've come through this webinar. So you can always register to whichever the ones that you want to be a part of. And we also have the various national and international days listed on the site. So you can use that to celebrate them in the 21st as well. So it's a nice quick resource to have around. And Sophie, do you want to talk about how they fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, sure. So obviously the work we're doing within Tiny Forest, it has inherent community and social value at a local scale, but also it really does have consequences at a larger scale, and that is really we are trying to manifest the work from Tiny Forest into that larger scale and feed it back to both a national and international space, both in terms of scientific research, policy, and the way that green infrastructure is managed within cities. So citizen science is an incredibly powerful tool for this. If we were trying to collect data individually from, I think, 208 tiny forests now, is it, Divya? It just wouldn't be possible. We really can't collect data on that scale without you. But essentially, it's just extra hands, extra people, and often science is actually quite simple. People think it's complicated. It's not. It's just about watching and listening and learning. And it's not actually, Tiny Forest now is growing. It's not just in the UK, it's actually going international. We have tiny forests in Australia, Netherlands. Do we have some in Japan? I can't remember if we have some in Japan.
Yeah, it did start in Japan. So Miyawaki planted like around 1,000 of them there. Yeah. And then I think moved to India.
Yeah, I mean, the movement started Japan and India, but certainly like Earthwatch Europe certainly has international tiny forests all over the place. So the data that you collect for us in the tiny forests, it doesn't just stay in house. It's not just for the inherent value of getting you to go and collect data. We use it actively. While the forests are quite young, it's quite difficult to pick up on trends. So at the moment, what we're doing is every year after you've collected data or from the tiny forest, we develop this monitoring report, which you can see in the middle image and to the right hand side. So for 2022, for example, we had nearly 3,500 citizen scientists monitoring sites. All the trees stacked on top of each other with a height of 7.5 Mount Everest. That's how tall they were all together. I think it was something like 90,000 trees. 2.4 tons of carbon stored across the tiny forests, and also what we haven't mentioned here is we do also monitor the social value. So we don't just look at environmental, we look at how the social science value and how that benefits people. We found that people's welfare was improved being in tiny forests. We are then using that data to work towards developing publications. So you can see the publication on the left through a few people in the tiny forest science team who, some are still here, some have left, and that's really on the social value. We're now starting to actively, now the forests are building both in terms of the number and also the data collection and age, that we're able to just get more, because they're basically what we would call living laboratories, because they follow the same method, so we can collect data from different geographies and compare it to one another. So we're actually now moving towards proper scientific publications, proper, research-based publications that will go into journals. We hope to feed that data around the Miyawaki method as an urban greening intervention to local authorities. So we would encourage local authorities to how and when they should plant Miyawaki forests, how they should be managed, the ways it can help local communities. So it's then both sort of local authority infrastructure. And long term, we'd like to link the data towards actual legislative policy. So in the UK recently, there's been some government policy passed called the Green Infrastructure Framework. And ultimately, what we'd like to do long term is use the data collected here to inform green infrastructure policy. So we have a lot going on, and we also have recently developed something called the Miyawaki Research Network, which is a network that we're leading with a group of academics from all over the world. So we recently had a meeting at the University of Sheffield. We have all sorts of projects going on, from Miyawaki forests with the mycorrhizal network, so mushroom networks in the soil, how microbes differ in Miyawaki forests, i.e. the tiny forest, compared to other sites. So for those microbiologists on the call. And we also collaborate with schools. I collaborate with some schools doing soil carbon. So there are these lots of other bigger projects that are coming from this amazing data that you've been collecting. So yeah, it's the scope is a lot bigger than you realise.
Thanks, Sophie. So yeah, so
yeah,
all
and
your data is going to be like.
Yeah, sorry, I get really enthusiastic about it, but it's also worth noting, if you do have particular skills that you don't just have to be prescriptive and follow the surveys that we've laid out for you. Obviously that'd be great because it's standardized method, but we do have members of our tree keepers that, for example, have designed soil monitors, and other people that have particular skills, maybe in GIS and mapping. So if you are interested in using your skills to do something a little bit deeper and more meaningful, then contact myself or Divya, and that will happily be discussed.
Yes, amazing. So yeah, we with Barnet, I think we had like tea bags and stuff buried in the soil as a part of.
That's the soil decomposition.
I heard last time.
Yeah, so I'm working with also a school in London where a teacher is developing a climate change module, and he's hoping to roll it out to other schools. And he is monitoring soil carbon, and he's also monitoring microbial decomposition in the soil with the students. And so if there are people here from schools who would like to do that as kind of part of their learning modules, then please do get in contact with me, and I can put you in contact with him, because he's very keen on rolling it out to a larger scale across other schools.
Lovely. So I think we are okay. The next bit is the Citizen Science Kit. So yeah, just give us a shout. I think with the tiny forests that have been recently planted, we have all kind of budgeted a science kit already. So we will definitely be getting in touch with all of you just to see if you would be interested. So if you want to volunteer as the one to be the custodian of the kit, please do give us a shout, and then we can kind of quickly dispatch these your way.
And the kit has everything that you need to do all of the monitoring methods we've mentioned. So for example, the weather stations that are included in thermal comfort, and these things where you require kit to do the testing. So that will just come in a nice package for you.
Yes. And a little bit about the Tiny Forest portal. So the portal is basically the website where you actually put the data in. So I'll just try to quickly run you through that. So this is the Tiny Forest website, and you should ideally have a login button here. So because I'm already logged in, it kind of comes in as my profile. But you know what? Let me just do that. So yeah, so this is how you would see it. Sign in. Most of you should have already received your login details. If not, just to give me a shout, and we can try to see if we can put you in the portal. So we have a whole lot of tiny forests listed in ours, because so all our tiny forests are in our portal, but you would have the profile of the tiny forest that you are linked to. So you can just click on that, and you would come to the back end of it. So this is what we call as a portal. So there are a lot of things over here. The first part, which is the tiny forest setup, is basically where we would be inputting the data. So this is the soil testing that we had done in your tiny forest. So all that would be put in there. But for you, I think the most important thing would be this section. So take a survey. So you can click on that, and that will give there's a link over here and a QR code that you can download. So you can just download and print this out. So all you have to do is scan it, and that will take you to the survey page, or share this link. So this is what the survey page would look like. So, and these are all the citizen science surveys that we have been talking about. And just to give you an idea, so with all the specific surveys, we have the respective survey guides. And ID guides. So for example, if you want to look at the butterfly time count, so this is the ID guide. It's just as simple as this. So, just have a read and you can start doing it. You also have the ID guide, so you can kind of brush up your butterfly knowledge just before you go and start your survey. So you kind of are familiar with who these guys are. But our surveys are also quite pictorial. So, once you get into them, oh, I have to sign an
This is the
alert.
new this is a new consent
Yes.
page. If you leave your cookies on your device,
Yeah.
it will recognize, you only have to do it once and then it will recognize you, so it won't keep asking you. So yeah, it's just liability consent, legal stuff.
So yeah, this is what your survey would look like. Very pictorial. Just see how the day is. Breezy, windy, and then you have the list of all your butterflies. So if you see them, you just have to increase or decrease the count, and then you would have the submit button at the end of it. Click on submit and done. But we do want to let you know that this is actually a live platform. So we would recommend not to do any tests, because any data that you put in would be actual data that would be analyzed by Sophie's team. So do have a wonder and have a look at all the surveys, but yeah, just don't submit any of the dummy data in there. But yeah, so that was the survey page. You have all the other surveys as well. So you have the 4 biodiversity one, and then you have carbon, thermal comfort, flood, and and all the survey guides are also present. And then coming to the resource section that I have been talking about. So this is the button over here at the end. So we have a lot of really good resources, like all the monitoring survey guides, the data sheets I was talking about. So, if you don't want the children to run around with tablets or phones, you can kind of print these out. We have the educational resources that I mentioned, all the training videos. So we're trying to have like a library of all the things that we have, all the trainings that we have conducted. So you can find all of them there. Then first resources. So you can kind of have a scroll. They're all here. The data sheets, educational resources. Yeah. So key stage 1, 2, 3. So they have like, specific teacher's guide on all these things, where you can kind of read up on how to introduce these topics to the children and young people of that age group. And these are all curriculum linked, so you kind of can have easy connections to them as well. We have the Scottish curriculum also included in this. All the training videos, as I mentioned, and yeah, you have the reading and the others, as well as all the different survey trainings are available here. So the flood management, carbon storage training. So all of them, have a click and have a read through them. The weeding guide, watering guide. So all these are also available here. So, just have a look. They're all available here all the time. So whenever you want, you can always, click on that and have a look. And Sophie also mentioned our recent biodiversity, our treekeeper monitoring reports. If you're interested, you can just go to click on home, and then we had this created for our biodiversity week, so you can still keep using this. So if you scroll down, we have our monitoring report available here. So
the monitoring reports can also be found in the resources as well.
Yes.
We develop a new monitoring report each year.
Yeah. So if you go to
changing.
Yeah. So you can go to resources, and if we go to the monitoring report section here, you can find that here as well. So yeah. So this is the portal, the back end of it. So there are quite a lot of resources that you can take advantage of. So yeah, please do have a look. And I promise I'm almost at the end of our presentation.
Divya and I are very enthusiastic about doing
so yeah, that is done. And then and you might have already received some of these. So we have a whole lot of resources out there to support tree keepers. So we have seasonal newsletters. So you get actually like not too frequent. So you get probably like once a month or something, just to give you an idea of what's a good thing to do in this month in your tiny forest kind of newsletter burst. You also know the Tiny Forest email ID. So this is like the one shop stop for all your Tiny Forest related questions. And I'll make sure that I send it to the respective department if I need more feedback from them and connect you to whoever you want to get connected to in the team. The portal, as you know it, webinar. So you have already visited our Eventbrite page. So have a look over there. There are a lot of them scheduled in the months to come. So you can also kind of sign up for that and be a part of these webinars. And then we also have the Tiny Forest, the Tree Keeper YouTube playlist. So that is basically all the recordings that we have. We kind of are putting it in YouTube, so you can put it in your playlist, and then it's there for you to watch whenever you can. And then we have this amazing Tiny Forest Tree Keeper Facebook group. So, there are a lot of over 150, I think mostly 200 right now. So a lot of tree keepers out there posting pictures of their tiny forest and what they have been up to. So you can use the space to kind of connect to the wider network as well. And so before I start this video, so we have been promising you that tiny forests actually grow really fast. So this is from one of our oldest tiny forests, which is in Whitney, and this is basically to show you that they indeed grow really fast. So Whitney is near Oxford, and this was in May 2022. As you can see, they're like little whips. So yeah, and this is another, I have to add another video edit because we recently went back to our Whitney Tiny Forest again, and you can no longer walk. You'll have to like crawl into the tiny forest because the trees have literally doubled in size. So yeah, I have a few more videos, and I've made a few of my colleagues crawl through the tiny forest so I can capture that. So I'll be adding that as well. So as you can see, tiny forests do grow really quickly. So keep an eye on your tiny forest, and spring and summer is when they're going to have their growth sprint. So yeah, keep an eye on them and keep doing the carbon surveys.
Some of our science team have recently been over to the Netherlands, which is where the oldest tiny forest is, and it's, how old is it? Is it like 8 years old or something?
I think close to that. Yeah,
it's huge. It's genuinely sort of the height of a house, but it looks amazing, and yeah, it's doing what it should do.
Yes, and that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your patience. Let me stop sharing and open up for any questions. Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself, and yeah, any questions, comments, observations, please do let us know.
Sarita asked if I could put her in contact around that, the sort of extracurricular work I've been doing with Aman, which is in the London College School for Girls. I believe I've got, I think Divya, as you shared the contact list, so Sarita, I'll email you tomorrow, because I know that Aman and I are he's very keen to roll this out to wider schools. We're just going to, what I might do is start collating a list of those schools that are interested. So I'll talk to you about this via email. Him and I are just resolving the methods first before we start, because we have to do a bit of tweaking. We're resolving that, and then we will look at next year rolling it out to a group of other schools. But yeah, I'll definitely contact you tomorrow by email.
Yay. And I'll also try to drop in the Earth. I'll ping you the Earthwatch education website as well, because we have a few more resources, free resources for educators that have a look at, and they also have a lot of training sessions for teachers and educators. So if you and your colleagues are interested, you can apply for these. So these are completely free for the teachers and educators, and we have other funders who are funding this program. So please do.
They even do amazing like week-long camps, don't they?
Yeah,
Sarah just done one. Yeah, it looks incredible. These training camps.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Any other questions? concerns, observations, anything?
We're just too good.
So everyone's mind is blown and
Yeah.
no one has any questions.
If anybody has any thoughts, questions, shout out now or forever hold your peace, or just email Divya.
Yes,
We can answer
that's
it
always
another
an
time.
option. Yes. So all of you have the Tree Keeper email ID, so the Tiny Forest email ID. So if at all you have any questions, please do ping us on that anytime, and yeah, we'll make sure. Ooh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. And yeah, if you have any other requests, so yeah, as Sophie said, like if you have any specific interests or any other experiments that you want to conduct in your tiny forest, do give her a shout, or give us a shout, and I can connect you to Sophie, and yeah, we can definitely take this forward. Please do have a go at one of our citizen science surveys as well. So giving your feedback on how that went. And yeah, pictures anytime, always. Photos of tiny forests are always welcome.
Yeah, legitimately, yeah. Please do feel free. We're always extra information. It's always great. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, okay. Well, I think we'll take that as a wrap then, Divya.